Now, one of the things I really enjoyed about your story is that you're good at spotting things before they become mainstream and before everyone else catches on to them. How did you first start making money?
Oh. So I first started making money with student loans. It's almost embarrassing to say. I feel like a rush of like humility come over my body. I didn't come from wealth. My dad is a really hardworking person. My mom was a great mom, and together they did what they did. But by the time it was time for me to go to college, my dad had started a new business, and new businesses are can be really rough, and this was not the perfect time to go. So I went to college, and it was very clear to me that I needed to cover as much as humanly possible. So I did through working externally and going to school. But somewhere towards the end of college, the mid '90s, domain names came around. Okay, and domain names essentially kicked my career off. The problem is my capital was student loans. Now I have to tell you, I do not recommend that to anybody. Okay. Capital can come from various places. Everyone has access to money. You know somebody that trusts you that has some money. Okay. Leverage them. Don't leverage your student loans like me. My timing was good though. Okay. The timing was good. So one of the biggest names early on that I picked up was act.com. And act.com, I found it on a message board. So it was a Yahoo message boards. Okay. And this name was being sold for $1,000. And I reached out and I said, sold. Basically, I mean, who would think to look on a Yahoo message boards under the domain name category? I said, sold. They were going bankrupt as an organization, this small company that used ACT as their name. And I bought it right away. And again, so you take one last class, $1,000 goes out the window.
Mm-hmm.
And that turned out to be an incredible return on investment.
How much did you sell it for?
Ultimately, we sold act.com for $500,000. And that was a couple years later. And it was to Symantec. Symantec act scheduling software. Now, before they bought it, I will say they did have their moments. Like I received a phone call. I was around 23 years old. And, in my little apartment. And I get a phone call. And it's never good when they start calling you Mr. anything when you're a kid. They're like, Mr. Padawer, we have reason to believe that you're holding something of ours that has trademark value. I'm like, okay. They're like, do you have act.com? I said, yes. They said, okay, listen, that's ours. I was like, oh. I was like, that's going to be a real surprise to the ACT board and to Act toothpaste. I was like, that to me is ridiculous. I said, what you own is one category, one name in the entire trademark registry of all the different categories you could register for. You do not own my domain name. And they said, let's call you back. So about 30 minutes later, I received another call. Mr. Padawer, we're prepared to offer you $300,000 for your domain name. And I said, no. And then the third call was Jeremy. So I finally graduated to Jeremy. Jeremy would like to offer you $500,000. And I guess there's a difference between when someone says 300,000 and $500,000, but my brain just kicked right in and I was like, yes. So that was a big game changer for me. I mean, it really changed my whole universe.
That's funny. That reminds me of like, people ask, how much money do you make? And the guy's like, millions. And they're like, how many millions? He's like, 0.1 million. It's like, it sounds like so much more than $100,000. $500,000 is much more than 500,000.
Absolutely. $500,000. And especially when you're 23, you don't have any money. I was making some money because I had gamed Yahoo. Okay. So Yahoo at the time, so the search functions back in the day, the algorithm was trash. Okay. The algorithm back in the day was essentially, do you have 2-letter A's in front of your name because you show up first in a categorical search? It was very much like a phone book. Like I know that most young people have never even seen a phone book at this point, but phone books used to be these big bricks that they would deliver to your home. And then everybody was listed A to Z. And then there was a yellow pages where each company or each category was also listed. So if you wanted to go to get your electrician, AA would show up first before ZZ, which would show up last. That's exactly how Yahoo worked. That's exactly how all search engines worked. So I decided to game it. And I decided to focus on categories that I really knew something about, which was toys and collectibles. And I created absolute basically everything with 2 A's. Absolute Beanie Babies, Absolute Furby, Absolute everything. And all of these Absolute names were individually under each category of Yahoo and listed first. So that was enormous for me. It was that gave me the idea that domain names may have a lot of direct navigation traffic and value. And so putting those two things together was spectacular for me. Within 6 months, I went from being broke to being someone that was making more money than my professors, which, by the way, I had no idea how much money they were making, but it felt good to think that.
What other domains did you buy?
Gosh, I had names like uninsured.com. I had names like, I still have jeremy.com.
That's
I
so
had
cool.
names like Marshmallows. And the first domain name that I ever bought, okay, I don't know, it's all embarrassing, but I feel like partially you're my psychologist today, okay?
Let's hear
But
it.
yeah, I bought schmuck.com. That was the first domain name I ever bought. And the reason why is because I was just typing in generic words and they were making me laugh. And I typed in schmuck.com. And interestingly enough, the reason why schmuck.com is worth a lot of money, and I didn't know this, is that it means jewels in German. So when you hear schmuck and people kind of joke about, you know what it means, family jewels or jewels, that's the rough interpretation or translation.
I had no idea.
Yeah, so I sold it to a German jewelry company back in the day.
How much?
I think it was like 30 grand. But
Oh
again,
my
for me, it was a lot
gosh.
of money.
That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
how much did you buy it for?
$30 right off the registry.
Unbelievable.
How many domains have you bought?
Oh, hundreds of generic terms. And like one of the names that I still own is PacificPalisades.com, my city name. It gives you so much power because not only can you reach a very specific group of people, but in a time like this, when a city burns down, if you can write, and one of my talents, there's very few, is I am a decent writer, and I love to advocate for people who have lost something. And so it's not hard for me to advocate for my neighbors who have lost so much during this fire, especially when a city was so inept.